Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the San Benito Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees regular board meeting of Tuesday, October the 14th, 2014 at 7 p.m. Item number 2 is roll call. Please state aye when I call your name. Hector Leal.
Aye.
Oscar Medrano.
Aye.
Angel Mendez.
Aye.
Ana Cruz.
Aye.
Fatima Huerta.
Aye.
Ileana Gonzalez. Antonio Limon.
Aye.
And our attorney, Mr. Torres. Item number 3 is Pledge of Allegiance to the United States and Texas flag.
Leading us in our invocation is Lluvia de la Cruz. Lluvia de la Cruz is the daughter of Sergio de la Cruz, and Maggie Delgado is a 5th grader student at Landrum Elementary. She is 11 years old and has many hobbies, including tumbling, reading, and drawing. Her favorite subject is reading, and she currently serves as president of her 5th grade class. Leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance is Maria del Rosario Estrada. Maria del Rosario is the daughter of Juan Estrada, and Graciela de la Rosa is a 5th grade student at Landrum Elementary. She is 11 years old and spends her free time drawing and cheerleading. She has received several honorable awards for her academic performance and is an asset to her class and the campus as a whole. Will the parents of these students please stand up and be recognized at this time? Everyone, please arise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Dear Heavenly Father, tonight we come together in prayer to thank you for all the blessings that you grant us on a daily basis. We want to thank you, God, for all the staff on San Benito School District. We pray and ask you, dear Lord, that you help all of our school board members, all the district staff, and all the students to stay positive and focused on all the things that are important to lead us into a better future. We pray that you keep all of our fellow students and myself safe from any harm. We also ask you, God, to please give us patience and serenity to all the teachers so they can continue to work with a smile and great energy. One more thing, Father, please help us to stay grounded and humble so that we can always make unselfish but wise choices for everyone's benefit. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Thank you.
Move to item number 4, special recognitions. Juan Delgado, Transportation Department, performed the Heimlich maneuver on a fellow co-worker, thus saving Mr. Cantu's life.
Ms. Longoria?
We have 2 dedicated Transportation Department employees, and they are so dedicated that right now they are doing their rounds and delivering the students home safely. So that's exactly how these gentlemen operate. But I would like to tell you a little bit about these 2 gentlemen that we are honoring this evening, and we do have some certificates for them that our Transportation Director, Mr. Rolando Moncevalles, can present to them. We have Mr. Juan Delgado, and let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Juan Delgado and also his co-worker, Jose Cantu. These two gentlemen were assigned to take the seniors, class of 2014, to their senior trip to Fiesta, Texas in San Antonio. Juan Delgado, a bus driver, saved fellow coworker Jose Cantu's life during a near-choking incident while transporting students on their senior trip in May. While on their lunch break, Mr. Delgado rushed to Mr. Cantu's side after noticing Mr. Cantu was having problems breathing. Mr. Delgado quickly performed the Heimlich maneuver, thus saving Cantu's life. Transportation Department staff members undergo routine trainings, including first aid and CPR, to ensure student and staff safety. During National School Bus Safety Week, which is scheduled for October the 20th through the 24th, it's important to recognize the efforts of these employees and acknowledge the efforts of all Transportation Department staff members who, like Mr. Delgado, always go above and beyond the call of duty. So let's give them a round of applause, although they couldn't be here this evening. And at this time, I would like to call our Transportation Director, Mr. Rolando Moncevalles, to come and say a few words and accept the certificates on their behalf.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Limon, members of the community, and guests, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to take this time to thank you for this recognition for our staff members. Every day nationally, some 25 million students board school buses throughout this nation, making it the most safe and efficient transportation system in this country. Actually 5 times safer than transporting them to school by their own parents, and 20 times safer than any other vehicles that are used to get them to school. Everything that we do in this industry, from the vehicles that are used to the training that is employed, is prefaced on safety. Included in that is training that these individuals were able to exhibit in this circumstance on the senior trip back in May. I mentioned it to Ms. Longoria. She said, you know, this is something that we need to recognize these gentlemen for. And due to their dedication, both of them were given an opportunity to be here tonight. Both chose instead to follow their obligations to service the safety needs of our students. And for that, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the opportunities that they have to serve our students. And we anticipate that they'll continue to do that for as long as we're able to provide that for them. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Sir.
If we could.
Well, I guess it would be an antithesis if I didn't take it.
Wonderful job, and your staff does an excellent job every day. And thank you
so
very much.
We do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move to item number 6, the superintendent's reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would like to advise the board of the overnight trips that have been scheduled. We have the high school band, the area marching contest in San Antonio, October the 24th through the 26th. We have the high school FFA, their national convention in Louisville, Kentucky, October the 27th through November the 2nd. The high school VMA National Junior ROTC Drill Competition in Seguin, Texas, November the 7th and the 8th, and the high school VMA ROTC Drill Competition in San Antonio, Texas, December the 5th through the 6th of 2014. As you're aware, we have an initiative in the district with the University of Texas Health Systems out of Houston, the Instructional Improvement Initiative that is headed locally by Cristina Barrientos. I'll ask her to come forward at this time. They have a presentation, an informative presentation to make to the board.
Good evening, Mr. Board President, Superintendent Limon, and members of the board. I am Cristina Barrientos Diaz. I am the Instructional Improvement Manager working with CLI and the University of Texas Health Science Center, and it's my pleasure to be here with you today. I have some special guests in the audience, which are our newly hired instructional specialists, and so I would like to take the time to introduce them to you. We do have a couple that had prior commitments via college college classes or family commitments, but I thank the majority for being here with us tonight. We have Jessica Rodriguez, if she'll please stand, from Angela Leal Elementary. We have Marlene Araiza from Dr. Garza Elementary. We have Miss Amelia Kupek, Frank Roberts Elementary. We have Miss Cindy Montemayor Ramirez at Judge Oscar de la Fuente Elementary. We have Miss Elizabeth Leos from La Encantada. We have Mr. Jimmy Richmond at La Paloma Elementary. Miss Aleida Chapa from Landrum Elementary. Melinda Maya Baeza from Rangerville Elementary. Miss Monica Munoz, Sullivan Elementary. And we also want to recognize Miss Laura Gomez from Dr. Cash Elementary, and Criselda Chavez from Ed Downs Elementary, and also Miss Belinda Gomez from Fred Booth Elementary. And may I approach to, okay. I will go ahead and get started, and hopefully my director will be getting in shortly. He is making a trip from Austin, so hopefully he'll get a chance to speak with you. This is going to be an update on what has been done thus far with the Instructional Improvement Initiative. As you all know, CLI and UT Health is partnering for this initiative, so we would like to give you an update on actually what has been taking place. And so these are just some highlights of what we have. On August 7th, the board approved working with CLI on this initiative. And we had some early planning with district leaders, and we actually posted our position for specialists. On August 18th is when I actually started working full-time here in San Benito. And we started our interviews shortly after, September 4th and 5th. During that time, we had the CLI team come and share the district introduction to the initiative with district leaders. And finally, on the 9th, we had our instructional specialist hiring plans that came to the board. In the month of September, really my time was concentrated on visiting with the campuses, explaining the roles and responsibilities of the instructional specialists, and answering any questions with principals. The initial start date for our specialists was September 29th, and we had 3 days, full days of training, which I provided with collaboration of CLI. We went over the roles and responsibilities, district curriculum. On day 2, we focused on data analysis, and on day 3, we focused on coaching and campus introduction to the initiative. We had our first training, the instructional training, on October 10th, which we started with Reading with Purpose, which is a foundational comprehension training and a Think, Turn, Talk training. We will follow those trainings for the rest of this month with the secondaries, and on October 24th, we will follow through with our GK or phonics routine for K2. During this time, on September 30th, we had a group of the specialists. We had invited principals and deans to come share some data with us. And it's probably not very clear on yours, and I apologize for that. But I just wanted you to see the process that took place as we looked at, and this is just a sample data that we have for this second grade end of year data, and this is how we develop our professional development plans. We want to ask 4 questions. What do we know notice about the data? Why do we think it looks the way it does, and what are the concerns? And lastly, from an instructional point of view, what can we do about it? And so we look for trends and we see what are the lowest areas. In this slide, we found that some lowest areas are in phonics and in fluency. And so we saw that that was consistent with grades K and 1 as well. We moved on to STAR data, and this is again just an example with 7th grade. And with this, we did an item analysis looking at our student expectations and looking at the actual number of questions that were tested on the STAR. And so we want to focus in on the expectations that are going to give us the greatest impact for student achievement. Within this area, we found that inference and summary were some of the lowest areas that we felt that was consistent from grades 3 through 10. And you'll be able to see the charts that we went ahead and created with the group that was there. So we continue doing this with reading, writing, and math all the way from kinder through 10th grade. And we identified 2 target areas of concern at each grade level. We looked for common areas of concern across the grade levels. And this is what we found. For 2 target areas of concern in kinder, we found listening comprehension and rhyming. For grade 1, you have comprehension and fluency, which is contributing, the decoding and phonics is actually contributing to that. In grade 2, we found a fluency and phonics concern. And you'll see that grades 3 through English 2, consistently we saw making inference and summarizing as our main areas of concern. With writing, you'll see on the next page, we have revising, we have editing. And with math, we saw something interesting, and this conversation was talking a lot about problem solving, justifying answers, and a lot of connection to the comprehension that we had seen in the reading. So now that we have all this information, we thought, what must the plan be able to do for the students of San Benito? We want to support success, first of all, at all of our schools. We want to support the English language learners, which we know need a lot of support at our schools. We want to have a consistency and alignment from classroom to classroom and school to school. We want to, whatever we focus on, we want it to be achievable for teachers, focusing on new routines and strategies over time to allow for implementation. So we don't want to bombard with a lot of strategies at once. We want to take our time and really impact instruction. And we want to address the concerns that are noted in reading, writing, and math. So you have an attachment in the back, hopefully that will give you a larger version of this data-informed plan that was created. And so we divided into strands because we need to address different issues with K2, 3.5, and then 6.12. And you'll notice there's a lot of time in between the trainings and there's a lot of follow-up. And that's just to ensure that there's a consistency, that there's implementation, and that we're helping support that. Myself working along with the specialists to make sure it's truly impacting our schools. It's not just receive the training and we go back to doing what we're doing. We really want to see how this can impact our instruction. The foundation part is comprehension foundation. Reading with a purpose will be concentrating on inferring, and we did have that training already. And the Think, Turn, Talk is an instructional routine that's really geared for our ELL students to be able to stop and talk and process time to be able to express their learning. And so that is that first training that we have gone through. Lastly, you see at the core of everything we do is the professional development cycle. And we really believe that it's a cycle because it's not just about that first part of training. That first part of training is where we take in all the new information, we connect it to our background knowledge, and we truly learn what it is that we're going to be doing as specialists and as teachers back at the campus. We then follow through with a guided planning. So we take the teachers through that process of, okay, how does it actually look with instruction? How does it look with our lesson plans? And we provide some exemplar lessons to share with their teachers. Then we go through the modeling. Okay, let's go and do this in the classroom. I can work alongside you as a co-teacher, or I can demonstrate with you to make sure that you understand how it should be implemented. And then only then do we observe and debrief, and we have a rubric to say, okay, this worked really well, but let's try something else. And it's all in a very collaborative manner. And then lastly, the follow-up and plan next steps. We really work with our administrators, work with myself to determine, is this working? And if not, do we have to revisit this cycle? And so this is really at the heart of the trainings that we do with CLI. And so at this time, I've already introduced our specialists, but if I can have Ms. Kupek, she would like to say a few words to the board, please.
There you are. Good evening. Good evening again. I'm so glad I'm here, but I want to thank you all for inviting us, the instructional specialists, to your board meeting this evening. It is an honor and a privilege to be part of the implementation of the professional development cycle here at San Benito CISD. This professional development defines our role and keeps us focused on the needs of our campuses. Again, thank you. Not only do we benefit with the CLI team partnership, but those that will benefit the most will be our students here at San Benito. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ms. Diaz, I've got a couple of questions. I noticed that in your progress report, you specified the days that you met with the campuses. What has been or how well has this been received as a product at our schools in reference to supporting it and working with it? Have we been positive about it, or has there been some apprehension?
I think that for the most part, there has been a lot of positivity, and I think that being able to meet with the principals face-to-face and talk about any concerns, but really it has been more of an informational piece, and really everyone has been very supportive, and they welcome the fact that we are going to focus on instruction, and this person at their campus, they have a very defined role, and I am here to help them with that role. And so I think we've had a very positive, I've had very positive feedback, and it's been a pleasure working with our administrators.
I know our investment in this plan is somewhat hefty, and it's been a concern to all of us, but it was an investment that we felt we needed to make to bring our district forward. I appreciate the monthly reports. I think it's a requirement and a standard we'd like to see.
Okay.
We'd also want to see how well it's being received and how well it's being implemented.
Sure.
If there are any difficulties in the plan, we'd like to see why. Because this will be, in essence, the only manner we can assess as to whether our investment is bringing us the return we expect.
Right.
So I appreciate that. But, of course, I open the floor for any questions or comments.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
I know you stated that the emphasis of your trainings are going to be focused basically on reading, math, and writing.
Yes.
And on the writing, you specifically stated the revise and edit. How much attention are you all putting on the development of the writing skills for the composition? That's one. And then how much effort is being placed onto that? Is it just 4th and 7th? Is it vertically, pre-K through 12th grade? How are you handling that aspect?
We do want to approach the writing with the same strands focus with K2, 3-5, and 6-12. And we want to make sure, that was a conversation we had when we talked about how our student writers are struggling. And really, we had to identify that revising, but really everything goes hand in hand. And so when we say revising, really it is the writing process and approaching the writing through reading as well. And so hopefully within our trainings, we will be able to embed that writing. But we did see it was a big need throughout these analysis that took place.
Okay, and then my other question is, hopefully we'll be getting those reports on a monthly basis as a follow-up. But as far as the effectiveness of the strategies, what is going to be the frequency that you're going to be, ensuring whether or not it's actually working, or if you need to revisit that and revamp it?
Right.
What's a frequency?
For example, this first training that took place, we will have a 3-week period where we will be initiating the lesson planning with the teachers, and during that time, I will be meeting, taking part in the co-teaching and the demonstration at the campus. But really, we're looking probably for a 2-month basis to be able to determine before we move on to a next training. We want to make sure that we get that first foundational training down, and if we need to slow down and revisit the first training or the previous training to make sure it is taking place, because it is very possible that we can get this training and follow through with our plans, but like we said, we have next steps, and our next steps will require following up, and in some cases, okay, let's revisit, let's provide an additional training because maybe the teachers need more support with that. And so we will have to be monitoring that monthly and really determining, are we ready to move to the next training before we make the decision that, okay, we have good implementation.
I have to congratulate the instructional specialist. I want to welcome them to San Benito School District, and hopefully they'll do a good job. And I have to agree with Mr. Padilla. We need a monthly report from you guys, for sure. And then we'll determine the outcome of this program. But definitely, welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you so much. And if I could just introduce Mr. Milner, who is my director at CLI. You just want to stand?
Thank you. I'm so sorry that I'm late and couldn't be here. I came straight from meetings all day at TEA, so I appreciate the chance to be here at all. And have you had a
Those are
chance to
good.
hand these
We
just as a
did, but
reference?
those are better copies, so that would be great if they could have those copies. Yes. Okay.
I think we have one more
Oh, sorry.
follow-up question.
One more of a suggestion.
Yes.
I know that the role of the instructional specialist right now is going to be to work collaboratively with the administrative team, because it encompasses every aspect of instruction. Just a suggestion, to maintain a close relationship with the RTI team on every campus. And the reason for that is because a lot of these trainings are, to me, can be perceived more as interventions. And like you said, if they don't work, they need to be revisited, and you need to incorporate something different. So to me, that seems to be an intervention. So I think the relationship between not just the administrators, but the RTI team on the campus or the district as a whole needs to also be pretty well meshed, so that way they're all working, collaboratively.
Yes, thank you. We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Diaz. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was F disbursements?
Next item in the superintendent's report would be disbursements and disbursements by organization. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Limon. Before we leave the item, I do want to offer some encouragement and support to our band, and I know we've got some drill team competitions going out of town. All we do is, as a board, we always encourage good sportsmanship and great success in their trips, and I think that our Greyhounds showed what we can do on a Friday night, so I think everybody's still smiling and happy, so hopefully that will continue throughout the rest of the year. Next item is item number 7, public comments. We have no one registered for public comments. Item number 8, action items. In order to promote efficient meetings, the board may act upon more than one item by a single vote through the use of a consent agenda. Consent items placed on the agenda shall be marked with an asterisk. Consent items are items for which the board discussion is anticipated, no board discussion is anticipated, and for which the superintendent recommends approval. prior to the time of the approval of the consent agenda is had at the request of any board member or trustee. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed and given individual consideration. We'll start with business and finance. 1410A1, request for approval of resolution approving annual review of investment policy and investment strategies. 1410A2, request for approval of resolution approving independent source of instruction rate relating to the investment responsibilities. 1410A3, request for approval of Emma McCall as investment officer for the San Benito Consolidated Independent School District. I do have a question on that, so we'll bring it out. 1410A4, request for approval of additional funds to purchase textbooks for students grade 4 through 5th. 1410A5, request for approval of purchase of laptops for instructional purposes. 1410A6, request for approval to repair Bus Barn Area 1A paving project. 1410A7, discussion and possible action to limit district funds expenditure for trustee travel to $5,500 per year.
Question.
1410A8, consideration and approval of an order authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of San Benito Consolidated Independent School District unlimited tax refunding bonds, Series 2014, delegating certain authority to the president and the board of trustees of the school district and the superintendent of schools pursuant to the provisions of Texas Government Code, Section 1207-007 and 1207-008, levying and continuing direct annual ad valorem tax, authorizing the refunding of certain outstanding bonds, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase contract, approving an official statement, execution of an escrow and trust agreement, and making other provisions regarding such bonds and matters incident thereto. Question. 14A9, request for approval of 2013-14 budget transfers. Question. 1410A10, request for approval of 2014-15 budget transfers. 1410A11, request for approval of 2014 budget amendments. We'll move forward with action on the business finance of all items that were not in question. May I have a motion for approval?
This curriculum and
Well, yeah, I was going to take them separately if we don't mind. If not, if that's okay with the board, I think I'll jump to the next ones after we've discussed these, because we've pulled quite a few out for question here. So again, I'll ask for, on business finance, a motion to approve the 14A, or excuse me, all those that were not pulled for question, and then we'll proceed to the others.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Let's start with 1410A3, request for approval of Emma McCall as investment officer for San Benito Consolidated Independent School District. Ms. McCall, the only reason I pulled it for question, I was under the understanding through our finance meeting that you had requested that there would be other additional officers?
What I'm doing is making sure there's others that are trained.
Okay. Okay, so it's not another officer, just other trained personnel?
Right, so at the time I do leave, there'll be somebody else trained to be able to take over.
Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification, doesn't policy stipulate that we need 2 officers instead of just 1?
Sometimes they have the superintendent in there also, and I have no problem with that. If they want to name somebody else, that's fine with me.
Are you comfortable with just yourself at this time?
Sure.
Okay. With that, then I'll ask for a motion to approve 1410A3. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Motion passes. 1410A4, request for approval of additional funds for the purchase of textbooks for students. Grade. Ms. Gonzalez?
Okay, I had a question on this one. During the curriculum meeting, we talked about the purchase of textbooks to be utilized in conjunction with the technology component. And then during finance, I had to step out a little bit early from that meeting. But the discussion was basically to purchase textbooks, a class set of math and science. And I'm reading on the agenda, it states that this is specifically for math, correct? Okay. So my concern is not so much the math, my concern is more the science. And the reason for that is because after giving that, some thought, the math TEKs have been revised. So this is a year where we can kind of look at all our resources, not just the, the district-adopted curriculum components, but look at all resources out there, scrutinize those, and then kind of, maybe the right word to use is not to kind of play with those resources, but in a sense, yes, to try to determine which is going to work best, and then come the new school year, then we can make an investment to support the new math TEKS. After all, TEA has stated that the math, there's no standard set yet. So this is a year where we can kind of pick and choose our resources. Whereas on the science, that one we do have standards, that one we are still being held accountable. And if we don't get these kids those resources for science specifically, we're going to fall into the same mistakes that we did this past school year, where some campuses were performing well below 50% passing. And so I would just ask the board to reconsider and not so much invest in math resources, but rather science. So with that, I'm asking if I could make a motion to pull this item and give it further consideration.
Well, that'd be an action, a motion you'd have to make. If you make that motion, it'll go vote. But I think before you place the motion, I will say that I think this is an item we discussed very thoroughly for 2 nights before it came to the board as presented. One of the concerns, and you are correct in the essence of looking at your funding and how do you utilize it, I think that the issue was that the most prudent expense as presented by staff was that the math book was the option to go to, because the math book, in purchasing it now, would give you subsequently the following years of book issuances as part of the purchase of today. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the issue, and we're being prudent because we wanted to expend on a product that was supposedly not going to be revamped or reissued for the next 3 to 4 years. And the science was the consideration that, well, because it's going to be reissued next year, why would we want to expend on a book that only has a 1-year shelf life? So I think that was the issue, and I agree with you. We always want to be prudent with our funding, but there was only limited source of funds for this. So I think out of the two, the issue was, well, what do you get for your product, and is it a product that you can continue to use for the next 3 to 4? So I guess the issue was it was chosen as math, but again.
And the only reason, like I said, is because the TEKS right now, there is no standard. So there's a wide array of resources out there that we can actually pull from. Whereas the science, we're held to a standard. Correct, Mr. Limon? We're held to a standard. So the STAR is going to be administered in the spring for 3rd through 8th, but there's no standard set yet. And the state's not going to set a standard until after that administration. So those resources that you all are considering purchasing now could potentially be purchased later if the technology component is effective. I'm just concerned with the science. If we don't provide the students the science resources right now, we're going to fall into the same situation as last school year, and our performance is going to be very low because obviously that didn't work. And if they don't have textbooks now, they're not going to be able to really have that sink in.
And I agree with you, because the consideration and the concern I had from day one when we started discussing this item was, why were the books not ordered to begin with? And we're already 6-7 weeks into the school year, and now we're looking at ordering books, and by the time the book component comes in, we may be down 2 to 3 weeks down the school year, so we've already expended, 13 weeks of school year. So it's an issue of the board. I mean, again, the action that was approved was, I guess, what was recommended after those 2 lengthy discussions. You bring to light some issues that may have been visited then or are being revisited again. I would just hate to table the item from the simple perspective of we're trying to be as efficient as possible to get a book that is being requested now, and any other additional delays is just going to make the book obsolete for the purpose of usage. If we wait till the next month or a couple of weeks down the road, we'll be at week 16 by the time the books come in, and it may not serve anyone any purpose at that point. So I guess we could approve the math and subsequently bring the science back again, and let's keep revisiting the issue. But I think that there's been a request for math books because they're needed. Again, we don't want to delay that process. You do bring some true concerns about the science issue, and it may be something that needs to be brought back to the curriculum and the finance. And if we have to have a special meeting in the next week or two to do it, let's do it. But I think at this point, my recommendation would be to accept it as it is now.
So can I make a motion to approve this item pending revisit on the science? Because I am concerned with the science. I don't want these kids to go without resources because I'm concerned. I'm concerned with the performance from the last assessment, and if we provide them nothing, then we're doing an injustice to those kids by not providing the resources that they need.
Well, I would think that it would be not an action pending. It would be a motion to approve the recommendation as brought forward with a comment to set another curriculum and finance meeting to revisit the science book. Because if you put pending, we're going to have to wait till after that review before we can actually order the books. So, okay. So there's a motion on the floor by Ms. Gonzalez for approving the recommendation with a recommendation of setting another curriculum and finance meeting to review the science books. Is there a second? There's a second. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item was 14A7. I've asked for a request of this, and this is really more just a statement to the community. I know that in our public meeting earlier, Ms. McCall referred to the excellence in financing and the excellent rating, but in that process, we were brought to light to the expenditures that occur on an annual basis, and I had felt some concern on the amount of travel and expenditures that have been seen by our trustees. And I'm not being critical to anyone. I'm only saying that in my visitation with other board presidents and other schools, I have found that it is very common for there to be a limitation on the amount of expenses a trustee can utilize for their annual training. We understand there's quite a bit of travel and training required. Sometimes some of it is local, some of it's within the state, but very seldomly is it without the state. So I've asked that a policy be created now with a limitation of $5,500 per year per trustee. And of course, if there is a special issue or special occasion, or if our football team continues as it is and we're at some other level, we may have to revisit. But for now, I'll ask that for a motion to approve this recommendation. There's a motion? Second. There's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. 1410A8. I've asked for a question on this. I know that Dusty, our financial consultant, has brought this refunding back to the table. If you could, please. And I had a couple of questions again, Mr. Dusty, apologize. When we had our finance committee, you mentioned a 98 series, but I do not see a 98 series in this package.
Correct.
Okay.
That very, very good point. The largest bond that's in this package is the Unlimited Tax Refunding Bond, Series 2005.
Correct.
That Unlimited Tax Refunding Bond, Series 2005, when it was done, it refunded the 1998 series and the 1999 series. So within the Unlimited Tax Refunding Bond Series 2005 is
a component of the 98.
Is component of the 98 and the 99.
Okay.
Correct.
As I stated in the finance committee, I have concerns when we're refunding a refunded bond unless the savings are assured. And one of the reasons I have problems with refunding these is against the fee structure on a package this large. I'd be curious to know what the fee structure was when it was refunded the first time. Because if there has been a $800 million savings in the components, but we've spent $500,000 or $600,000 of it in fees for refunding, we've really gained nothing. Now, I will trust that I will see the performance on all of these. I think I've requested that so I could get an idea of just where are we with these bonds.
Certainly.
Okay, please, I would like that.
If you would, the presentation that I put before the board tonight may help a little bit here. If we can go to page number 10, that is inside section 2. The Series 2005 bonds that are currently outstanding right now, if you see those, it's this page here. And the ones that are bolded on that page are the bonds and their corresponding coupons that are set up to be refinanced. And you'll see that the predominance of those bonds are outstanding at a 5% rate on the larger 2005 issue. And then on the smaller new money piece of the 2005 issue, they range from 473 or 4.5 to a 473. Okay. Then also on page 11, you will see the maturity structure of those bonds that were refinanced by the Series 2005 bonds and their corresponding interest rates. The bonds that are set up really from this to continue to be refinanced, that are now living inside that 2005 refunding bond, are the 2016 through 18 maturity of the 98s, as well as the 2016 through 2025 maturity of the 2000 bonds. You'll notice those 2000 bonds were originally issued at most of them were issued at a 6% rate of interest. And so as we come to and look at now, this being kind of the second incarnation, the second opportunity to lower the interest cost and interest burden of the district, the bonds that are candidates to be refinanced tonight, if you were to look at those bonds that we originally looked at there on page 10 that are in bold, the 05 new money and the 05 refunding bonds. On page 9, we have a summary of what a refinancing will produce in terms of interest savings. And what we have here is that those bonds we're looking to refinance right now currently are outstanding at an average interest rate of a 5.02%. And we're looking at refinancing them, if we were able to be in the market today, at a 2.35%. So able to really bring the blended interest rate down significantly. And that would create savings of about $2.394 million. And in present value dollars, it's about $2.155 million, or 12.32%. Is it? Very good. That's what I wanted to hear. Fantastic.
The other question I have is, I know that we've talked in detail about the issue of two underwriters. I don't have an issue with two underwriters. We did talk about the issue of, I'm surprised that we are having two underwriters. I would only ask this. There's two issues, and the reason I have a concern of underwriters is I want to assure ourselves that the fee structure for the underwriting did not get exaggerated because we're using two underwriting agencies. So we have a history of what we know what one underwriter will charge. Again, it changes and it floats with the market, but I want to make sure that we're protected. As our consultant, I will ask for you to assure ourselves that there is no excess fee costs here.
We will absolutely be writing herd, so to speak, over the underwriting syndicate to make sure that there is no additional fee cost to the district by having more than one underwriter. It is our plan and our understanding that there's a total underwriting spread around the issuance of $17.245 million.
Right.
That spread should be broken out in proportion to each underwriter's own liability. It should not be added to because of the liability.
Precisely. And that's one of the concerns I have.
And we will ride herd on that.
Okay. And the other issue is, I would ask that, because we are playing with $17.5 million, and I do have a concern as to who the underwriters are. I will ask that Don Frost and Don Gonzalez be the two key individuals we work with this deal.
Okay.
Don Gonzalez is representing Estrada Hinojosa, which we've had good history with. I have faith in Don Frost. I've seen his work before. This will assure us that we have two individuals that are protecting the interest of the district.
They will be the bankers that we get in contact with.
Thank you. Outside of that, then I have no problems with it.
Very good.
Okay.
Is there a reason why we're having two underwriters instead of just one?
That's a great question. There's a reason that you add participants to the underwriting pool, and actually San Benito ISD in the past has used, in some instances, two, some instances even three, depending upon the size of the issue. What adding additional underwriters to the transaction does is it allows for broader distribution of the bonds. Some underwriters may have very strong relations with certain investment groups, certain investors who might buy those bonds. However, they may not have a great reach with another group of investors that could come in to buy the bonds as well, and that other underwriter has those relationships there. So it helps to broaden the distribution network amongst your underwriting syndicate. That's one. Secondly, it also helps to spread the underwriting liability amongst the two firms. Underwriters are in the business of buying bonds from the district, San Benito ISD, at a price and immediately taking those bonds and selling them to end investors. However, during a bond marketing and pricing period, may have a bad pricing day, rates can move up or down just like the stock market. And at the end of that underwriting period, out of the $17,245,000, there may be $5, $6, $7 million that the underwriters don't have true going away commitments from investors to buy. And by having two underwriters, you have the ability to spread that risk amongst the two. One, say if there was $5 million left unsold, you'd have one underwriter that might take $3 million of that, and another underwriter that takes $2 million of that. It spreads the risk amongst the two so that not one underwriter is sitting there faced with the uncomfortable position of potentially losing a significant amount of money if the market moves against them.
The information that will be provided to the board would be in one packet, one representative representing the two underwriters, correct? Or will they be coming in and providing us with information or updates on that?
Well, what we will do is we are immediately, once the board approves this parameters resolution, beginning the process of communicating directly with the underwriters, also developing the preliminary official statement, and getting the bonds rating. And then we will work with those underwriters and their desks to have them go out and actually sell the bonds and lock in the interest rates. We'll coordinate that with our desk. One of the things that you trust in us and the reason that you hire a financial advisor is so that when it comes time to price those bonds, we are there looking over their shoulder, making sure that the pricing of those bonds is at rates that are commensurate with the level of where the market is at any given time. So our firm has an underwriter as well that underwrites Texas K-12 bonds like San Benito all the time. He can't underwrite your bonds. It's a conflict of interest, right? So, but I will use him to make sure that the interest rates being charged, being proposed by your team of underwriters meets market standards. And then we'll bring back, once we get done, we will bring back a report to the board.
Correct. Thank you.
With that, then I'll ask for I'll place a motion on the floor that we approve 1410A3 subject to utilizing the firms of Frostbank and Estrada Hinojosa being the senior agency with the facilitators or the individuals working the deal, Don Frost for Frostbank and Don Gonzalez with Estrada Hinojosa.
I'll second.
There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you
very much. Great to see everyone.
Nice tie, Dusty.
Nice tie. Yeah.
Okay, other business and finance question was 1410A9, request for approval of 2013-14 budget transfers. Ms. McCall, the reason I asked for this to be brought out is only from the perspective of, I know that in our finance report, we showed the financial losses of our managed care program, and I wanted to see how that's affecting our final transfers to close out the 13-14 year.
Okay, the transfers, that one, I don't know if that had any impact on that one, because that would take a budget amendment. I had done a budget amendment prior to the end of August. Hopefully it would be adequate to cover it. I'm not sure it will be, based on the slow payments from our TPA. But we've had a few transfers that were slow because some of the bills were slow getting paid. They didn't have the money in the right account. Okay.
And precisely I asked that because I know we did make a budget amendment to try to find additional funds to cover the managed care program and the cost of it. I know that our finance committee meeting, you stated that we would anticipate, as we are at this beginning of October, a $3.4 to a $3.6 million loss in our managed care program.
Yes.
That's a substantial loss, and unfortunately, that's caused us an enormous amount of heartache in trying to find ways to satisfy salary increases. I know that there was a large discussion on trying to find a way to fund a $3.5 million TASB study. I wanted the public to be aware that these are the dilemmas that we have before us when we have a program that was anticipated and brought to this board with a $2 million savings, yet there's a $3.5 million loss. That's a $5.5 million turnaround from what was anticipated. So I just wanted the public to know that this Board of Trustees is looking at everything it can do to try to find a resolution to the losses, and also to continue reviewing opportunities to increase the salaries of our employees, because we do have a tremendous amount of faith in you. But these are concerns that are tremendous when you have a $5.5 million turnaround. And on that note, Ms. McCall, I would ask that we now start evaluating if we're at a budget cost that may direct this district to start looking at a fully insured program and get out of the managed care program, because I think we are now spending sufficient dollars to go towards a funded program and alleviate ourselves of all of the concerns that we currently have in both the aspect of trying to manage this thing, which I think has been difficult for everyone.
Yes, sir.
So I would ask that that be visited, so that maybe over the next month or two, as we start getting into the mid-year and start making preparations for the 15-16 year, that we really analyze what it is that this district's going to have to do to find the funding and or find the resolution to this dilemma that's gotten out of hand on us, unfortunately.
Yes,
So.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll ask for a motion to approve 1410A9, request for approval of, there is a motion. There is a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll continue with the consent agenda. 1410, under curriculum and instruction, 1410A12, request for approval of the 2014-2015 district campus performance objectives. Under administration, 1410A13, request for approval to update policy EIC local. Question. 1410A14, request for approval of policy update 100. 1410A14, request for approval of 2014-15 class size waiver. And 1410A16, request for approval of minutes. I'll ask for a motion to approve those and not in question.
So moved.
There's a motion. There's a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. 1410A12.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Because there's so many. So, no, I'm just kidding. Just one question, and first of all, I'd like to thank all the principals and teachers and administrators that are in the trenches on working towards the objectives that's set by TEA and the state. I know that it is a very difficult task to try to achieve the performance objectives, being that it's a new model. But nonetheless, I did notice some items that I am pleased that you identify some of the areas that you think need improvement, and you didn't scale it so high. However, that should not that concept of aiming for the 100% should not be one that we disregard. But nonetheless, some of the items that I have seen is, of course, in the areas of the CLI that's been bringing up, and of course, some of the resources that would be utilized in the district. So, in essence, to everything that we've been discussing about our budgets, our expenses, and whatnot, it is important that we understand that we are in a tight situation. And that the funding be expended in the proper areas to improve student performance, and not just frivolously putting in services for just for the sake of it. I will be asking the board for future presentations of any objectives set forth by consultants, interventionists, or whatnot, to kind of mirror the CLI component. So again, congratulations on this item, and I have no further questions.
Is there a motion on the floor to approve 1410A12?
So moved.
There's a motion. There's a second. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 14A13. I do have a concern with this policy change. I understand that when we first began the discussions of this, originally the early stages of this was to consider giving the opportunity of dual enrollment to get the equal points as AP classes. And I understand the direction we want to go because it is a TEA direction that's being kind of imposed upon us. But I do have a problem with the seniors being included in this revision. I do not believe that the seniors will have had the opportunity to either take advantage of the change, or because of other curriculum or extracurricular activities they may not have the opportunity. So with that, I would ask that if we're going to continue to move forward with this policy change, that it be amended and we remove the senior class for this year and then move forward thereafter.
I also spoke to Mr. Padilla, and I suggested that we consider excluding the juniors and the seniors, and simply because when the juniors started with their dual enrollment or AP coursework, they started off with a plan, and some had commitments, whether it be extracurricular activities, which consumes a lot of their evening time, to take additional dual enrollment courses, or they had other commitments such as providing for their household by providing an additional income via means of a separate job that they're holding. In addition to that, you've got those other students who have no means of transportation to get them to and from those extra courses that are being offered in the evening. And I just don't think it's fair that we not get consideration to excluding the seniors if they started off with a plan being informed a certain way, and now, we just suddenly pull the rug right up from underneath and say, you know what, new rules, new game, let's start all over. And I think that maybe this policy should be subject to the 9th and 10th grade versus 9th through 12th, and just give consideration to excluding the juniors and the seniors equally.
Any additional comments?
With that, then I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the policy EIC local, however, excluding the juniors and seniors to this new policy.
There's a motion on the floor. There is a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Move to item number 10, 11. Closed meeting, discussion under the authority of Texas Government Code 551071 for the purpose of private consultation with the board attorney on any subject or matters authorized by law. 551074 for the purpose of appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, to hear complaints or charges against a public officer or employee. A, report on personnel. B, employment, resignation, and retirements. C, deliberation of possible action on level 3 grievance. Mr. Ruben Garcia include possible approval of settlement agreement. D, discussion and hearing on avoiding MG, a professional employee probationary contract. We go into executive session or closed session at 8:03. Back in session. It is now 9:26. We'll move forward with some of the items discussed for action in executive session.
Mr. President, I would like to make the recommendation for the Human Resource Director. At this time, the recommendation that I make is Mr. Joe Wood.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to accept the recommendation for Mr. Wood.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. I will abstain on this one. Motion passes. Any other items that we discussed on that?
We have the other, as discussed in executive session, the approval of the employment of routine personnel.
Is there a motion on the floor to accept the recommendations? So moved. Second. All those in favor, stay by saying aye. Aye. That clears. That'd be there's I'll ask for a motion to approve the settlement agreement as presented by our attorney.
So move.
Is a motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor, stay by saying aye.
Aye.
Our motion passes. And on item number D, there's a motion is there a motion on the floor to terminate?
So move.
So move, second. All those in favor, stay by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're adjourned. I get out of here.